All right. So you remember the problem that we're trying to solve is we are trying to figure out what order we're going to drive to go to all these hotels. So we've got 35 hotels, 36 hotels that we have to drive to. We have road distances between them, and we're trying to calculate a route to be able to do that. So far, all we've done is build a couple of arrays, one array to keep track of the names of the hotels, and another array to keep track of all of these distances. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this data off this first column, which I just plugged in there so we can kind of look at it. And so our trick is our array is going to be a two-dimensional array. Our dist array is a two-dimensional array, and we want to be able to put this information here, but to fill up the bottom half of this matrix as well. So whether any cell we look in, we should be able to see the distance between the two properties that are relevant here. So between the Phoenician and the Sheraton Phoenix Airport Hotel, we want to see that distance here, which is only 9 miles. It's the same as this one here. Okay, so just to review the code that we ended up with. And by the way, I've posted this up on the blog. If you want to download and start from where we are today, you can pick that code up as well. So, so we've declared up here one called hotel as a string where we're just going to keep track of all of the names of the hotels. By the way, when I declare a variable, or in this case, an array of variables, way up here at the top of the module, what does that mean? Instead of declaring it inside the subprocedure, I'm declaring it at the top of the module. What does that change about that particular variable or array of variables? It changes the scope. It changes where it can be accessed from. Anytime I declare a variable inside a subprocedure, it's only available inside that subprocedure. But if it's declared out here, then it's available from any subprocedure inside this module. So we're kind of left off ourselves trying to fill in the dist array. And so remember, these are dynamic arrays. And so we're not setting their size when we declare them, but instead we're figuring out how many hotels there are. And then we are redimming the hotel array and the dist array to be the number of hotels that we want to keep track of -1, because when we redim, it doesn't, or when we declare the array or redim it, we don't tell it how many elements we want, we tell it the top index that we want to declare. And because we're having our indexes, our arrays start at 0, instead of asking for 30, redimming this to 36, which is the number of hotels we need, we're redimming it to 35 because they will be numbered 0 through 35 is how we're going to think of them. All right, we then have a loop that's going to loop until we have until we bump into blank data. So we're starting here and we're moving, we're starting here on row 2 and we're moving down until we run into blank data here. And you'll see then that we are putting into our hotel array, row is going to start at 2. So the first time we hit this, we're going to be at 2 minus 2 or 0. The 0th position in our array, we're reading a value off of the worksheet. Row will go up by 1 at the end of the loop. And we'll get to the next time through, we'll put the next name of the hotel into this array. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And where we really left off was trying to fill in the two-dimensional array. So because when we redimmed our hotel array, we gave it 2 indices, now anytime we're going to refer to one of the variables in this array, we've got to tell it both indexes. So we can think of this almost as a worksheet, but of course the indexes are going to be different because they start at 0. In fact, over here on the arrays tab, I've kind of given a visual depiction of the arrays that we're going to use to solve this problem. So we have an array called hotel, and the index numbers are 0 through 35, and we're putting these values in. We have one called dist. Let me change that from distance to just dist. We named it here. Now, if I want to talk about that particular variable in this array, I've got to give it 2 indices here. I've got to give it the row that we're on and the column that we're on. So that would be row number 3, column number 2. Remember that it's not really organized into rows and columns. It's just 2 dimensions. It's just 2 indices that I have to give. And whether those are rows and columns or some other metaphor for me to think about it doesn't really matter as long as I think about it consistently. Okay, well, the trouble is that my data is only right up here in the top triangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my loop so that it just reads off these values. So I want to see it reading those values and skipping over these blank ones because there's no data in the blank ones for me to be able to work with. So let's go ahead and see what it would take to get our loop to do that. Now, first of all, we've got this variable row that is already taking us down row by row. So now all we have to do is change our inner loop to make sure that we're getting just these here. So when the row is 0, or when the row is 2, here, row number 2, I want to read on column number 3. I want to start on column number 3 and go to the end. When the row is 3, I want to start in column 4. When the row is 4, I want to start in column 5. Okay, so we'll see that sequence. So here, when my row is 2, my column should start where? It should start at 3. So I'm going to change this. Instead of starting at 2 for this inner loop here, I'm going to start at row plus 1. So this is the first time that we've had a for loop where we didn't just have a hard-coded starting point. So we're going to come up to this loop, and each time we start this loop, so if we think about how this is going to happen, row is going to get set to 2. We're starting this loop. We're putting in the hotel name, and then we get to this one, and while row is 2, we're going to go until we hit row number, hotel count plus 1. Hotel count is 36 until we hit column number 37, which is where the data ends. So row is 2, bing, 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 bing. Column will kind of iterate through, and we'll go all the way across that first row. Row will go up to row 3. We'll start again, put in the name of the hotel, and now we're running this loop again. Row is 3, so now we're going to start at 4 and move across. Okay, so instead of trying to plug this into the array just now, let me just comment that out, and let's just print this out. I'm going to print row, column, and then I'm going to print what is at that location. So now when I initialize these arrays, my hotel array will get initialized. And I'm not actually putting these distances in, but I should be able to see them printed out. So let me go ahead and run this. And there's only 200 lines in the immediate window, so I don't get to see them all here. But here on row number 18, column number 29, I've got 481. Let's just check and make sure that's right. Row number 18. Column 29. Uh-oh, 29. Let's see. Z is 26, 27, 28, 29. I kind of lost my active cell. Oh, there it is. Yeah, 481. So that's the cell that I'm seeing right here. That's the value. Yeah, 481. So this looks pretty good. We get down here to row 19, and we've got, and it looks right. So we're getting now just those values. So I could now go ahead and write those values into my array. And I won't have them all, but at least I'll have the data that we have in there. So let me go ahead and plug those in. We'll run this code again. So at this point, I should be able to look at dist, ask for row 18. Well, let's see. It's row 18. So if I want to back that off by 2, looking at my array, index number 16, and then 19 minus 2 is, or 29 minus 2 is 27. That should give me that same 418 or 481 number there. So I've got then all of that data loaded up. I should be able to look at row number 0, column number 1, and that should be my first number from this array. Yeah, that's 691 there. Oh, okay, so I've read that data in, but the array is not fully specified because if I look at row number 1, column number 0, it should be exactly the same number that's in row number 0, column number 1. But right now, it's 0. Why is it 0? I haven't written to that yet in my array. Why is it 0? because my distance array is an array of what kind of variables? My hotel is an array of strings. My distance is an array of integers. And so the default value for every numeric data type is going to be 0. So it's 0 here because I haven't put anything else into it. So what do I do? How am I going to get that value to go here in my array? Maybe I'll look at the array. How do I get, when I write that 691 in, how do I get it to write that 691? Go ahead. Just flip the indices for the array. Yeah, because when I write here to row 0, column 1, I want to write the same value to row 1, column 0. When I look at this one right here, row 2, column 3, that's the same as row 3, column 2. And so after I write this one, I could just duplicate that line and just swap the indices. And so now that should fill up that whole array. So whether I look at 1, 0, oops, script out of range, did I run this? F5. Whether I look at dist 1, 0 or dist dist 0, 1, I get the same value out. In fact, we can look at that by looking at our locals window. So view locals window. I should be able to look at my module level variable. Here's hotel, with all my hotel names in it. Here's dist. And I can look at, say, row number 4, and I can see I've got values going across. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And of course, on the diagonal, I'm going to have 0 there because I never touch my diagonal. And so the diagonal is going to default with the 0 that's already there. And that's why, coincidentally, that's the number I want there, because that's the distance from a hotel to itself, 0 miles. Okay. This is not especially simple what we're doing, but show me where you are on understanding this distance array on 0 to 5. 3, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, I think we have these arrays pretty well initialized, but let's take a look at one more array that we need. Remember, the task that we're doing here is we are going to figure out which path we're going to go to these hotels in. And so I need some way to keep track of the order that we're doing it in. And since we're doing this as an exercise to get familiar with arrays, let's go ahead and make one more array that I'm going to call route. And the route array, again, will be an integer. And we're just going to use it to keep track of which hotel number we're going to. So we're going to start at hotel number 1. That's the Salt Lake. The Salt Lake property is hotel number 1. So if I look here, the Sheraton in Salt Lake is hotel number 1. And so ultimately, what I want my code to do is in a route array, we want it to start off by saying, go to hotel number 1. The next step is going to be to go to the one in Las Vegas, which is number 7. So then we're going to go to number 7. I think I want to center that. Go to number 7. I don't remember where the next one, what the next number is, maybe 19 or something. Eventually, we're going to have to go down to the Los Angeles area. So we'll hit number 0. What else is in Los Angeles? I don't know. But we're going to end up with all of these. Now, if I remember right, who gave us the algorithm to do next nearest hotel algorithm over there? Okay, so you said for us to figure out what the next hotel to go is, we want to go to the closest one with a constraint. What's the constraint? The closest one that we haven't been to yet. So how are we going to keep track of the ones that we've been to? Well, if we're building our route, this is going to tell us which ones we've been to. So if we start off by saying the first thing we want to do is put in here a 1, then that'll say, great, we've been to 1. Don't consider going to 1 because we've already been there. we'll have to write a function that will do that calculation for us. And then once we get to 7, we're saying, listen, pick the next nearest hotel, but don't consider 1 and 7. Now, the problem is because we're going to make this as an integer array. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and just declare this. Let's go ahead and declare our route. Just copy dist. We call it route. And we'll redim it just the same way we redim hotel. It'll just be 1 dimension. As soon as we redim this, we're going to have our 36 slots in that array. But what values are going to be there when it starts? What is that array going to start with? Will it be blank like I've shown here on this sheet? Can a numeric value ever be blank? A numeric variable ever be blank? No. So it's going to have something in it. What's it going to be? It's going to be 0. So we have a little problem here. And what's the problem if we start like this? It'll think we've already been to this hotel. It'll never go to that hotel because it's going to say we've already been there. It thinks we've already been there. So part of initializing this route, we've got to get something outside of 0. In fact, any number between 0 and 35 is going to be a problem. So what number should we put? Yeah, I think -1 is a really good choice because we're anticipating this wanting to go larger. So 37 is a bad choice. But you can't have negative. Can you have? You might be able to have it. We're not going to have any negative values. We're going to start at 0. Any negative hotel numbers. And so let's just go ahead and while we're initializing, we've got one more thing to do. Let's just initialize route to have a value of -1 inside each one of its places. So now we've got to have something in here, and now we're going to have -1 in all of them. Okay, so now I think we've got our arrays initialized and we're ready to start solving the problem. Whew. Hope we can do it because we've only got about 35 minutes to go. Okay, let's do this. Our first step is going to be, we're going to hard code tell it started Salt Lake. And the way we do that is by putting the hotel index that we want to start with in that location. So perfect. We're going to start in Salt Lake. So let's go ahead and make another. So we've got initialize arrays here, and I've got a stop in it. Let me clear out my stop. Redim preserve hotel. I don't want to redim preserve this. That was just an example of that you could redim an array and keep its values in it. So I'm getting rid of that. And then I'll make another, maybe I'll do it above. I'll make another sub procedure called calc route. And when I run calc route, I'm going to say, hey, start off by initializing our arrays. So I'm going to call initialize array. And then I'm going to say start in Salt Lake. And I'll do that by saying route sub-0 equals 1. That's what route sub-0 equals 1 means. It means start in Salt Lake. Okay. Now I got to find the next nearest hotel. Whew. And I think what I want to do for this one is I want to maybe make a function, make a separate function that will do this for me. So route sub-0 equals 1. And let's just, what should we call it? Let's say route sub 1. Ultimately, we'll make a loop for this. But right now, let's just kind of hard code it so we can see it. Route sub 1 equals, and let's just call it next hotel. We can make a function that will just go find the next hotel. And why don't we go ahead and tell it which hotel we're currently at? We could have this function read the route array and figure out where we currently are. But let's just go ahead and tell it where we currently are. So next hotel from 1, right? So we're saying we're going to 1. Now we want the next hotel from 1. So let's make a function called next hotel. And we're going to pass it in current hotel as an integer. Okay, so thoughts about how we're going to find what the next hotel is. It's probably going to involve a loop. Yeah, and in fact, which array are we going to look at? We've got 3 arrays. We've got route, we've got hotel, and we've got distance. Which array are we going to look at for this? Yeah, it's going to be the dist. It's going to have the one that has all of our distances in it. So if I look here, and out of all of this array, at this point, when I'm trying to find the closest one to Salt Lake, at this point, which part of this array is relevant to me? Is this cell relevant to me at all? No, because this is the distance. I don't know what this is. The distance from, this is the distance from Las Vegas to somewhere else, whatever 2 is, to Phoenix. That's the distance from Las Vegas to Phoenix. So which part of this array, so a bunch of this, most of this array is totally irrelevant. Which part is relevant to this part of the problem? Yep. I didn't hear it. It's not half. It's way less than half. In fact, it is approximately 1/36 of this array that is interesting to me. Yeah, it's either row number 1. Highlight the whole thing. It's either this row, because this row shows all of the distances. It shows the distances to all the other hotels from hotel 1. Or it's this column. Those 2 have the same data in them. And I don't care which one we look at, either one. So let's do this. Let's just start off by printing off those distances and making sure we're getting to the right one. So we'll make a loop here. We will say for, let's see, declare a variable. We'll just call x as an integer. And I'll just use this to control my loop. For x equals 0 to, how far should I go? I want to go to my hotel count minus 1. The trouble is, my hotel count is defined as a variable down here. I can't access that variable from this function. But fortunately, I can ask an array what its upper boundary is. And it doesn't really matter which one I ask because they're all the same dimension. They're all, at this point, 35 is the upper boundary. So I'll just ask the hotel from 0 to ubound. It's a function that's built right into the VBA language. I give it an array, ubound of hotel. And that will tell me what the upper boundary of that array is. Excellent. Next. Bigbug.print x and dist, row number, current hotel, whichever one I pass down. So I'm going to pass down, right? When I'm calling this, I'm passing down a 1 to it. The 1 is getting captured by this variable here. And so I'm going to use that to say that's the row I'm interested in. And the column I'm interested in is column number x. And so now if I was to call next hotel, the function next hotel, and pass it 1, it should give us all of the properties, all the distances from Salt Lake. Oh, but I haven't initialized the array when I call it directly there. So let's instead call calc route, because calc route will make that call after initializing the arrays. And we don't have to print calc route because it's a sub procedure. And that printed off way more than I thought it was going to print off. Oh, that's because we're printing off in our initialization. Let me get rid of this print. There we go. And what else am I printing? Printing the names of the hotels there. That's okay. So here, these are all the distances: 691, 0, 653, 662. 691, 0, 653, 662. So I've now narrowed it down to just that. Okay, so that's good. I've thrown away, I'm now no longer considering a bunch of these numbers. I'm only considering this row, but now I have to ignore which one? Well, I've already been to Salt Lake. That's where I am. So I got to ignore that one. Now in my array, that's actually going to be 0. Right, so that's 0, 0. The values that are in there are actually 0. Right, if I ask what's the lowest number in this part of the array, it's going to be 0. Fortunately, that's one that I want to exclude, because that's what I currently have sitting here in my route. I've already plugged in 1 there. So I need to be able to know that I haven't been there. So I don't want to print this 0 out. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to be doing more than just printing it, but I want to first get my algorithm so it can skip that 1, based on the fact that that number is already in the route, right? I put that number in the route right here. And so any number in the route I want to skip. So let's go ahead and make another function here that will just tell us, we'll pass it a hotel number, and it will tell us if we've been there. In fact, I'm going to call it been there. And I'll pass it down a hotel index as an integer. Someone give me an algorithm that I can use to have this. And by the way, this is a function. It's just going to return true or false. This should return false. This should return true when what condition is, under what condition should this return true? If we've already been there. So talk to me more in terms of the VBA, or in terms of variables that I have here. If my hotel index is a value in the route array. So I'm just going to loop right across the route array. Let me go ahead and declare another variable down here. Dim x as integer. Oh, wait a minute. I declared x up here. Is that going to be a problem? Why not? It's a little bit louder. Yeah, it's because they're both declared inside of these individual functions, which means they're only available inside that function. And so that's the reason I want to declare my variables kind of at the lowest level possible, so I don't have to worry about, well, what else might be named somewhere else. So just to here. So I'm going to go, in fact, this loop's going to be almost the same. Just copy this loop down here. For x equals 0 to the u bound of, I'll just make this one route, since that's the one I'm actually looking at. And then as soon as I find that the hotel index is equal to one of the values, so if hotel index, the number that's passed into this array, is equal to one thing that I'm looking at, so the variable I'm looking at, route sub x, then I want to set the name of the function equal to the return value. This function is going to equal true. Is there any reason for me to keep looking? What happens if I find that property a second time in my route? What would I send back? Really true? Extra, double true? No, once it's found it, there's no reason to keep looking. So what can I put here? Exit what? I can exit the 4. That would do the trick, because then I'm done with the function. Or I can just exit the function. And so only when if this will only return true if I hit this line. If I don't hit this line, what will it return? Yeah, false, because that's a default value for any Boolean. So, and this is a Boolean function. So now that should only return true if it's one that we've been to. So now instead of just printing this, let me go ahead and put that inside an if statement. If been there, no, if, let's see. I want to print if we haven't been there. Well, been there is going to let's print if we have been there to start off with, and then we'll fix it. if been there of the hotel, or let's see, if been there of the one we're considering. So we're looping through all of them. We use is that one we should consider? So if been there X, then, so now we're only going to print it if we've been there. So by running our calc route, we've only got one in here. That should only print the Salt Lake property. So yeah, that's the one. That's the only one print. But now that's not the one I want to look. I want to look at everyone besides that. So how do I change this? Instead of only printing the one I've been to, I want to print the ones that I haven't been to. Yeah, this thing returns true or false. If I want to reverse it, it's simple. Just reverse it, not. And it actually reads pretty well. If not been there, whatever hotel I'm currently looking at. So now that should give me everything but Salt Lake, right? So it gives me 0, distance to the one in Los Angeles, 2, I don't know where 2 is, in Phoenix probably, but it has skipped that one. Okay, that's great. So now we're no longer considering anything that is in that's in my route. In fact, let's go ahead and plug 2, 3, and 4 into the route just to see if it works. So routes of 1, 2, and 3 is going to be 2, 3, and 5. So now indices 1, 2, 3, and 5 should be excluded when I run this out. And sure enough, it goes 0, then 4, skips 5, goes to 6, and the rest of them. Because having put these in, our been there says, hey, you've already been there. No reason to consider it. Show me where you are on been there. 0 to 5, 5, 1, 2. Okay. So yeah, this is not simple. Let's go ahead and maybe just step through. Okay, so been there. Yeah, let's just, I'm gonna run this with F8. So calc route F8 will let me step through. Shift F8 will get me, Control Shift F8 will get me out of initialize array. It'll finish that one off. Okay, so now we're plugging these values in, and it might be helpful for us to see. I don't know if you can see it because it's so small, but let me view my locals window. Let's go ahead and open up our route array. So right now we can see we've got this all -1s. Can you see that? Can you tell there's a -1s in there? Yeah. So we should see these change as we go through F8, F8, F8. So we're plugging in 1 and 2, 3, and 5. Now we're going to go calculate what the next one should be. So we're coming down into next hotel. We should now see X take on a value here. Okay, so right now X is 0. And so now I want to know, I'm going to be calling been there X. So X is 0. So when I call been there, we've passed the 0 down here to hotel index. So now hotel index should be 0. Here it is. And we're now going to go across our whole route array. So we're looking at, so our hotel index is 0. We want to know if we want to know if we've ever been to this one. So we're starting at route number 0, and we're checking what's in route number 0 at this point. Yeah, route number 0 has a 1 in it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 5 in here. So X is going to start at 0. So I'll be looking at route 0, which is going to be 1. And I want to check to see if the number passed in is equal to that. The number that was passed in was 0. And I'm going to be checking through this set of values. I'm not going to find it because what's in there is 1, 2, 3, 5, and then a bunch of -1s. So as I step into this, if hotel index, the one I'm checking to see if I've been to, number 0, is that equal to route sub 0? No, because that route sub 0 is 1. So we're not going to go into that if state. X has now gone up to 1, and we're checking the next position in that route array. Is that 0? No. And we're going through the next one. Is that 0? It's going 0. It's going 1, 2, 3, 5, and then it's going -1 to the rest of these. And it's never going to find a 0 in it because 0 is not in the route. And so when it finally finishes out, it's going to come back. It will return false because it never hits this true. So Control-Shift-8, Control-Shift-F8 will take me out, finish running that. So this returned false. And so the whole condition between the if and the then now is true. So that lets us come in here. So that's one that we're printing. So we'll print that. Again, now our X has gone up, X is 1. And so now we want to know if we've been to hotel number 1. Let's just go ahead and find out. So we're coming down, we're looking through bin there. Now the hotel index is 1. We just want to see, do we find that value 1 in the route array? Well, are we going to find it? Yeah, it's in the very first slot. And so if I iterate through this, it's now asking if hotel index is equal to route sub 1. And in this case, the answer is yes. We passed down a 1 into hotel index, and we found that in the route array. So we come into here, we set the return value to true, and we're done. As a result, this returned true. So the whole condition is false. So we don't execute this one. Okay. Where are we now? Those that were showing low are a little bit better. Okay. Yes, question.
You assign -1 to every value.
Yeah, the question is how? Oh, how did we end up with all these -1s in here? And I did it really quickly at the beginning of class. So we set up the route array at the top. We renamed it to the right size. And then here, right when we're initializing our array, so right after we read the value of the hotel array, we just plugged -1 into every location in the route array. Other questions? Okay. All right, so now, instead of printing this out, in fact, if we're in here, this is a distance we should consider. Okay, so now we just have to find the smallest value. Of all the values that come in here, we got to find the smallest one. Whew. Well, the very first one we read is going to be the smallest one. Here's what I'd like to do. I would like to say we kind of have to keep track of the smallest one that we've seen so far. So let me declare a couple of variables up here. Stop my code. And let me declare a short distance as an integer. And let me also declare short index, because it's not enough for me to know the distance that's the shortest distance. I need to know where I found it. Oh. So I think what I'd like to do is the very first time I get in here, I would like to be able to say, yeah, that's going to be my best contender. The first time I get in here and find a distance I should be considering, that's the smallest one, that's the shortest distance I've seen so far. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off my short distance at some value that I know that the first time I look at one of my real numbers, it's going to be smaller than it. So a couple of options. I could say short distance equals 32,767. That is the largest value I could possibly ever put in an integer. Another good possibility is 24,000. Why 24,000? The circumference of the Earth. Yeah, right. I don't think I'm going to have a distance between two hotels that's greater than going around the whole world. I'm happy with either of those numbers. I'll just leave it at 24,000. So now I'm going to say if the distance that I'm currently looking at, so right here is where I was printing that distance off, distance between the current hotel and the X hotel. If that is less than my short distance, then I have found a contender. We have found a possibly short, we have found a possibility. The very first time I get into this loop, into this if statement, it's the very first time I consider a property that I have not been to, I'm gonna go, yeah, that might be the shortest one I'm gonna see. So I got to keep track of it. So once I've done that, that now becomes my new contender. So my short distance now equals that distance that I saw. And I want to remember where I saw it. And so my short index is going to be where I saw that short distance. By the way, this function needs to return an integer, so let me set the default type here to integer. And so now the very first time, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and step through this. Let me put a breakpoint here. I'm going to run up to that point. So run calc route. All right. So my current hotel is 1 because that's what got passed in. So if the distance between my current hotel and the hotel I'm currently looking at, which is hotel number 0, is less than my short distance is 24,000. My distance is 691. By the way, let me show you kind of another debugging tool that I didn't show you before. And that is I can select any expression here that evaluates to a value. I can right click and say add watch. And that will give me, I need to open my watch window. So view watch window. I'm not sure where I don't see the watch window. Is it here? I just don't see it. Maybe I hit it. Maybe I need to stop to view it. View watch window. I think it must be visible, but it's got to be somewhere not on the screen. Close my locals window. Oh, maybe it's right over here. There it is. All right. A little tough to see. Okay, so I'll run this again. Okay, so now what I did was I set up a watch on that whole expression so I can kind of see what the distance to the current hotel I'm looking at is right here. Like the current distance is there. And that'll just continually be updated for me. So it's like the locals window shows you all your variables. Your watch window can have more complex things besides variables in it. It can do variables as well. Okay, so now is my short distance 24,000. I'm comparing it to 691. That's smaller, right? The one I'm currently looking at is smaller. So if I step into this, I'm going to come in here and I'm saying, that is now my shortest distance I've seen so far. And I'm going to keep track of where I saw that, which was 0, which is what it defaults to. And now I'm up to my next one. next one, I've been to that one. Now I'm coming in. Let's see. If not been there, X. Oh, yeah, I had a bunch of these plugged in here. I need to get rid of these extra examples up here. I don't want to be skipping over 2, 3, and 5 at this point. Okay. Okay, so we just found our very first one, 691. We're going to skip the next one because we've already been to Salt Lake, so we skip that one. Now we're on to our next property. We haven't been to it. Our current distance is 653. I mean, the one we're currently looking at is only 653 from Salt Lake. And our short distance is 691. Is that my new best contender? Yeah, that's smaller. So I should come in here, remember that distance, and remember where I saw it. I'm up to my next one now, 662. Is that smaller? I've got 653, the one I've seen so far, 662. Yeah, that's bigger. So I don't want to drop into that if statement. Now 659, 653, I should skip the if statement there. 650 compared to 653. Ah, we found another one that's closer, 653. So we drop in. Next one is 661 compared to 650. We're not going to consider that one. Next one's 425. That's way shorter. So we're going to consider that one. And we'll go through the rest of them, and we will not find another one that's smaller than 425. So we're never going to come in here again. So we have found the hotel index that we found the shortest distance for was 7. And that is what we're going to return. So when we're done here, we're going to set our next hotel to right here just before you end function. Next hotel is going to equal our short index. And so now this function will send back the index number of the smallest value that we found. In case you haven't read the homework assignment that's due tonight, it's really, really similar to what we just did. It's in a little bit different context, but it's the same idea. Okay. We put a stop up here and then run that the rest of the way through with F5. So now we hard coded 1 to say start at Salt Lake. And now it has just pulled that 7 in and put it here. The next one that we want to get is we're going to figure out what the next route in the hotel, the next hotel in the route is. And we want it to come from 7. I'll just go run that. We should be able to see what it is. So, oh, in fact, I can look at it. If you guys can see this, okay, I'll just look at my route array. So we've got 1, 7, and then 12 is the next one that it calculated. I'm going to hard code 1 more, and then we'll make this into a loop. So 1, 2, 3. And I want this to start at 12. Okay, so here's the set that I need to have happen over and over again. It looks like this vector of numbers is going to be pretty easy to come up with. It's going to be like 1 through our upper boundary. But how am I going to get this vector of numbers? Like, when the first time I called, I got to send a 1, then I got to send a 7, then I got to send a 12. You go ahead and make the loop to handle the first part. You just dim x as an integer. For x equals 1 to the upper boundary of route. Next. So to be able to get those 3 lines, I'm going to be writing to route sub X, but how do I get this? Yeah. Call the answer. Yes, exactly right. I need to capture the answer that comes back. And that's exactly what I do. Like when I call this, it gives me the 7, but where do I put it? I put that right here in the route. So I'm putting into route sub 1 that 7. So when I get to this line, I can read that 7 right off of, like when I'm trying to write to route sub 2, I need to read the value that I just put in the one before. So this will be a little bit complex because I'm going to put, I'm calling a function, and what am I passing it to? I'm passing it an array with x minus 1. So when I'm writing to the xth route, I need to read the distance that I had at the prior position in the route. So the first time through, when I'm writing to x or route sub 1, I'm going to read what's in route sub 0, and what's there? That's where I told it to start in Salt Lake. I think that's going to calculate my route. So I've taken these 3 lines and built a loop that does them all. And then let's just do this. Let's just print off what the route is. Well, I guess we can look at it in the locals window. So let me stop this. And I don't have any more breakpoints. I'll run right up to that stop. And let's take a look at what the route is. It's not a very good looking route. 1, 7, 12, 19, 20. Looks like it's come up with that. So let's go ahead and I am going to go ahead and print that out so we can see what it is. So I'm going to have another loop that actually goes from 0 to the upper boundary because I want to see them all. You see that it starts in Salt Lake. And all I'm going to do is print this out. Debug.print. I'm going to print x, and then I'm going to print route sub x. So that should print 0, 1, 2, 3, the step of the route. In fact, let me print x plus 1 because that'll show me the ordinal position. It'll show me step 1 is go to Salt Lake, step 2 is go to Las Vegas. I'll print route sub x, which will be the number 1 and then 7. But I also want to print the name of the hotel. And how do I print the name of the hotel? I have an array with all my hotel names in it. It's called hotel. And if I want to print the name of Salt Lake, the Salt Lake property, I put a 1 there. If I want to print the name of the Las Vegas property, I put a 7 there. So what do I put inside this expression here to print the hotel, the name of the hotel in the route order? Yeah, route sub x. So if I did hotel sub x, it would just show me in the same order they are on the original list. I want them in the order from the route. So I'm going to print hotel route sub x. Ooh, this is kind of abstract code, but it's beautiful abstract code. Debug.print x plus 1 route sub x. Oh, no comma. So here's the route that I'm saying. Start in Salt Lake City. That looks great. Then go to Las Vegas. Then I'm going to the Sheridan Suites in Fairplex. I think we have the address for that. Properties, Fair, F-A-I-R-P-L-E-X. That is in Pomona, California. Anyone know where Pomona is? Really? No one knows where Pomona is? It's near Los Angeles. I think it's in the San Joaquin Valley. Anyway, so if we look at this, it says then go. So this looks pretty good. Start in Salt Lake, go to Las Vegas, Then Los Angeles area. Anaheim, also Los Angeles area. Anaheim, also Los Angeles. Anyone know where Cerritos is? Los Angeles area. Long Beach, Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles. Monarch Beach, Los Angeles. Ah, La Jolla. Where's La Jolla? San Diego. Yeah, so doesn't look too bad. Las Vegas, we go to a bunch in Los Angeles. We go down to San Diego. Now San Diego, San Diego, San Diego. Palm Springs. I don't know the road that much, but I think I might have wanted to go to Palm Springs on the way to LA. But down to LA, it looks like I'm headed north. So Las Vegas, down to LA, down to San Diego, now back up the coast. Probably would have been better to go to San Diego and do the ones in San Diego, then come to Los Angeles, then Palm Springs, and continue up the coast. Bakersfield, Central California, San Jose. This is Silicon Valley. So this is up near San Francisco. Silicon Valley, San Francisco, St. Francis, Montreal. I think that's misnamed. It really isn't the Montreal. That's, if we looked up that address, we'd see that it's in San Francisco as well. San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco, San Rafael, Sacramento. It's all Northern California. Wow. Seattle. So Washington, Seattle. I don't know where that one is. It's somewhere in Seattle. Oh. What's that? Scottsdale, Arizona. Went to Las Vegas, Southern California, up the coast. And now I've got a cluster around Phoenix. So Phoenix, Phoenix, Phoenix. What would have been better? Yeah, probably Las Vegas, go down to Phoenix, take the 8 over to San Diego, and then up the coast. We could have done better with a pencil. That's a little bit dissatisfying. But we couldn't have done better with a pencil 10,000 times a day. So this is a really simple algorithm. It's this algorithm, kind of mission accomplished. We calculated a route. It's way better than the worst route. We could have done better. But the point here wasn't really finding out the best route. It was kind of manipulating a problem that used arrays. Questions? Important thing to remember about arrays is that it is, as with every array, it's an array of something. And in this case, when we talk about it in the VBA, it's an array of variables. An array of variables. All right. Thanks for coming. I will see you on Thursday. Class dismissed.